Painting flesh tones that actually bring out the character of the person. Wow, it actually is a little bit more than just the flesh tones. I'm going to show you this week how to put some really simple shapes onto the face that bring out the character and the mood and the story that you're trying to tell. It's really easy to do. Hey, thank you very much for joining me. It's a real pleasure having your company. If you haven't been here before, I'm Michael, professional portrait artist from Perth, Western Australia. This is Alicia, and this is who we're going to be painting the face of today. Really, really simple, lots and lots of fun. I'm sure you're going to enjoy it. Look, please, if you haven't already done so, hit that subscribe, write me some comments, ask me some questions, give me that thumbs up, you know, all that YouTube stuff that really does help the channel grow. Thank you so much for joining me, and without further ado, let's paint.
Well, here we are on the palette, and those who watched my mixing video before this one, you see how I did the 3 darks, 3 midtones, and 3 lights, and just put a highlight in there. Now, just to get the portrait going, I'm just going to map in the eyebrows. I find this really helpful for me. I know everyone's slightly different, but I do find that if I can just map the eyebrows in using some of those previous darks I had in the hair, because obviously it is hair, it really does help me just get a fix on, especially where the forehead is going to come down to. And I'll just pop in her right hand eyebrow, left hand one as we're looking at it. Now, one thing I will say is I did get asked a few questions about my mixing palette, and someone said that, you know, there's not much of a step between one value, you know, the light and the dark, and the other. You can see they're actually quite close. This is particularly important for ladies, because ladies' skin is very smooth and it can be very deceptive, very hard to get the differences happening in there to get that 3D and realism. So I like to, if you got one of those value scales, you know, the 1 to 10, you can see them to go white to through to black. My steps are probably, all the difference between one value and the next is probably just what they would call half steps. So I kind of do a few more. So you see those 3 darks, there's not really a lot of difference. And especially when you're looking, I don't know what you're watching this on, but sometimes it is a little bit hard to see that on the actual screen as I'm actually painting it onto her face. So I think it's really good that I've actually got the palette. You can see what I'm actually doing there, and you can see when I'm going from each variant in the actual values. The other thing you'll notice is I'm not really fussed about color. You'll notice some of the color shifts going on, that just adds a little bit of interest to the face. Using a number 5 filbert here. I love my filberts. I sometimes do use flats, by the way, and daggers, but filberts seem to be my goal. That pressing motion again is just pushing the bristles in from one value into the next, so the lighter shade pushing it into the darker, and then as I pull it'll drag some of the darks back. Now, I do get this quite often, you know, people say, look, I tried that and it doesn't seem to do anything. And yeah, and look, I'm the same. What it is we're just sitting so close to the painting, and what the temptation is then is to overdo the blending. We want to go, oh, I'll pat it a bit more, or I'll get a brush and I'll wipe it a bit more. Because all we're seeing originally is just that huge contrast between, even though our steps are quite small, we can see the contrast. What I'm going to say to you is just hold off. You'll see as I come down this face, at the moment we can see quite clearly the differences in the values. Yeah, I'll just put a little bit of a highlight spot in there, and this is how I'm doing it. But as I move down and I fill more the face in, what will happen, the viewer's eyes, like magic, start to blend it, and it will lose all that heavy contrast that you're looking at. I actually don't do any blending. I don't do any touching. But as you're just watching me do this, I've just cut. All I'm doing is just cutting between where I'm painting and the palette. And you actually see your own eyes will start going, hold on, I can't see those differences anymore. It's because as we add to it, it gives us something for the eyes to grip onto. Now, the other question, I did get asked, what do I use as my medium? I use linseed. by the way. Refined linseed oil is what I like. I'm using Winsor & Newton paints. They can be quite stiff, which is great for, when you want that. But for this, and I'm doing wet in wet, I like to put a little bit of linseed oil, and that's what I use. I don't use mineral terps or anything like that. Mainly my studio's quite closed in, and I can't stand the smell. So refined linseed oil is what it is. Now, the other question I get asked is, you just watch me just work through the values. Do I always mix my values like this? And I must confess the answer is no. You'll see me, I'll just grab a little bit of hair color and a little bit of flesh tones. Oh, one thing I will say here. See, I just wanted to darken the flesh tones, so I've taken the hair color to do it, because it's the hairs that's going to start casting shadows. So what I'm doing, I'm keeping, the continuance of the colors. There's a blend, there's a match. So I'm not going outside of my color palette. So therefore, there's no jarring. Even when I put dark shadows on, there's no jarring. Important to do that. And look, landscape painters do it all the time. When I learned doing landscapes, we would say that, they say greens are tricky, because as greens go off in the distance of your landscape, they fade, and it's, how do I make my green lighter? Well, what's between you and the distant hills is sky. So if you mix your sky color first, and you see a lot of professionals start putting their sky in, it means they've got a bit of pile of sky color on their palette. And then the green that they've got, and they're putting that in the hills and a bit of brown in the hills, whatever they're doing, they just put some of their sky, because it's normally a lighter color or lighter value, put the sky color in. Basically, that's simulating the sky between you and the more distant hills. It's a really easy way to actually make your hills in landscapes recede. And we do the same in portraits. We'll use the skin colors, and you'll see me do this later. I'll put lighter skin colors with darker skin colors, and it will start to recede. So even though I've got all those flesh tones there, the skin colors and the values, I'll actually start mixing them together. But that's what I'm doing. I'm actually using them as a landscape artist would do a distant hill or a distant tree. Yeah, so you don't have to change your greens. You get your base green, whatever it is you're doing, probably a yellow, a bit of red and a bit of blue, and get that green you like. And then to make it recede, just start putting some sky color in. And that's exactly what I do here. Just really quickly, I'll just mark in these eyes. Now, I am going to do a video just purely on ladies' eyes. There's a couple of little things you can do on ladies' eyes that really people just go, she's smiling, her eyes are smiling, or their eyes are firm, or I can see her thinking. And I'll show you. It's a little bit hard on this one because the eyes are so small. You can see I've actually switched to a smaller brush. Which I really don't like, to tell you the truth. I like using my bigger brushes. And you'll see in a minute when I actually stick to this little brush and I start painting the cheeks in. And it really is annoying for me because I'm having to do a bit of extra work now to get that blend effect. You look on the forehead, see the noses come in as I start getting more. The forehead seems to blend more and more, and I'm not even touching it. So give yourself a bit of a chance there. Don't stress too much. Remember, you're only 6 inches to a foot away from this thing, depending how good your eyes are. But as they always say, paintings are meant to be looked at, not smelt. So you're meant to step back 3 or 4 feet and look at it, and all the magic will happen. So what was I saying? Yes. Do I always pre-mix my colors? No, I'm guilty. But look how advantageous it is for me. Now, mixing the colors, pre-mixing them, is what I call basics. Being able to do that color range that we've got, or the value range, whatever you want to call it, and the shifts there, that's basics. And what struck me one time, I was listening to a guy recite a basketball coach, and he asked one of the top players, could they shoot points from the 3-point line? And the guy goes, hey, of course I can. I just want to dribble, want to run down the court, do slam dunks. He goes, no. Just show me the basics. Do 100 of them, or 200 of them, or 500 of them, and do that. And what I learned from watching these top sports people, and really anyone in their profession, top painters, is they practice the basics. It's the basics. They keep practicing and practicing and practicing. Now, on YouTube, you don't often see them doing the basics because they've gone past that, and they'll just be either not showing you the palette or they'll mix as they go. But you ask any of them, to give you, a color range like that, a value range like that, and they'll do it without even thinking. They'll just snap of their fingers. They can go, yeah, there's my base. That base is bismuth yellow, which is Winsor Newton color. It's got alizarin crimson, and once I get that, then I start adding burnt umber into it. And if it burnt umber sends it a bit green, I'd put a little bit more alizarin crimson. I get my dark, and then if you watch the mixing, you'll see exactly how I do that. So this little brush is handy for these little details around the eye. The other advantage is I'm only doing very small marks, and then I'm shifting. I'm actually shifting the values around quite often. And you'll notice I'll bounce from one side of the face. I'm looking for some balance. I threw the nose in there. Now, the nose isn't going to say anything to me until I start getting the rest of the cheeks in. And if you're looking, I hope you can see the pencil line I've got just where my brush is there. And it's done a funny little shape. It curls in where the eye is, then winds out as it wraps around the base of the nose. Because the base of the nose is normally wider, so there'll be a wider shadow. The top is narrower, so there's a narrower shadow. So all I do, and it's nothing, I couldn't even see it on the face, but I just know, and it's just a little guide mark. So I'll just put that little S, that funny squiddle in there, and I'll do the lower jaw as well, because I know that a lady's cheek normally shallows in, it goes inwards, and then the jawline will be a little bit more prominent. So you'll see I've got a little line going down there just to let me know, hey, Michael, this is the jawline. You've got to pay a little bit of attention to this. And that little thing on the side of a nose there, that's just a little attention grabber, because this is the side of the face you're seeing, and it's a reminder. And I like making things easy. So the less I've got to think when I'm painting this, the better. So in my sketching phase, I can just put those marks in there, so when I'm looking at them, I can go, So next time you're painting a portrait, especially if the head is turned slightly one way or the other, just put one of those funny S marks. Oh yeah, it curls in there and wraps around there. And then I'm going to have a highlight of a cheekbone up on there. That's going to get that darkness going to light. Now you can see where the fold of that face is, that jawline or that cheekbone is going to go. And that's why I do it for. It just makes life easy. That a little squiggle down there, I go, that's where the cheek is going to sink in. Let me put a little bit of a shadow line in here, go into the jaw, and I'll just fill that in. And see what I see, how much work I've got to do. Now I'm using a little brush. Normally my big brush, 2 or 4 strokes, and that'll be done. And the problem is now when I'm putting the other values next to it, normally you'll see me press that big brush and let the bristles do that like half blend for me. Because I've got this little brush happening now, I'm having to work overtime. I'm actually having to do it with the brush, dab, 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 dab. Oh, goodness me. But I don't know why I stuck with the little brush. I think I just started enjoying using it and went, well, you can do whatever. And you can't blame your tools, right? I've seen people paint with house brushes. So, hey, only a bad tradesman is going to blame their tools if it doesn't happen. But all the time now, I'm just shifting values. And you can see very, very quickly how this face is starting to take shape. Also, I want you to pay attention to the forehead now. See how it's starting to look more blended. I've not touched it. It's just the illusion of the eyes. And as we're doing more work on the nose, you're going to find, see that hair color? I'm using that so that I've got that harmony of colors happening just to darken the flesh tones. So that's what I'm doing there. And then what I'm going to do, when I want to lighten the flesh tones, you'll find I'll take a lighter flesh tone, not white. I'll just take a lighter flesh tone and mix it into a darker flesh tone. There's me having to work overtime with that little brush because didn't switch to the bigger brush. So, if you're enjoying this, everybody, can I ask you to hit that subscribe button? Right, some comments. Hey, have you got some questions about what I'm doing and why I'm doing it this way? Here I am. I'm filling in that little shape that I drew. It doesn't have to be accurate. It's just a reference. It's only a reference. And then I know there's going to be a join in there, so I'll use a different value in there. So what I'm doing is like a patchwork quilt, I suppose. I'm just painting and doing that. So anyway, back to the important stuff. Subscribe, ask me some questions, write some comments, give me that thumbs up. Absolutely love it if you did that. And share the video with whoever you think might also enjoy this. And you see I'm just working through, and there's my little choice. I'll get some of that. I'll put some darker. So even though I've got that nice range, you can still get more range in the values, especially with a lady's face, because the more value shifts you've got going, very, very subtle value shifts, the better it's going to look. Now, there is no way on the planet I can mix all the value shifts in somebody's face. I don't have to, and I'm not trying to be a photorealistic painter anyway, but you don't have to. But the more value shifts I can put in, you see it on the palette, the different value. It may be a little bit harder once it's up on the actual painting. It's because everything starts to blend and your eyes start to fix. I always call it fixing any issues or any problems. And as long as you put the values in the right spot, the eyes will stop seeing join lines and jumps. It'll just fix it for you automatically. And this little brush is really slowing things down. I think we've been painting about 15, 20 minutes now. I'm not quite sure, but it'll be somewhere around about that. But I must admit, pre-mixing really safe. So a couple of things. Put some shapes on the face, and you can see where it is on that right-hand cheek now, which really, really helps. Don't over-blend, and try to paint. Don't paint one side and then the other side. Try to bounce from one side to the other side like I'm doing. And what it's doing, it's fixing your eyes for you. Initially when I put the nose in, I just blocked it in there quickly, just to give me a reference, and I shoot onto the jawline. And as I fill back, I can start to see the shape of the nose. See, when you hear me say I sketch and I use everything just as a reference, that's exactly, just roughly, just get it approximately there. And then as I put more paint down, it's amazing. Your eyes can start to see it and go, oh, I need to take a little bit off the nose, or it needs a little bit over here or a little bit over there. It's amazing what you can start to see. Now, this dark line I'm putting down here, it's just on the lip line. It looks too dark, but I know I'm going to be putting some different values next to it. And it's amazing what happens. So it's easier to lighten a dark than it is to darken a light. So it's really important that if you're not too sure, err on the side of caution is what I say, and make it a little bit darker. You'll save yourself a lot of hassles. Now, the nostrils just pop in, and you say there's nowhere near black. That's why it's great to be able to see when I'm doing my palette. And the other nostrils are slightly different value, and away we go. And then we'll just get some highlights happening on the nose. Look how quick she's actually formed, because we've actually pre-mixed colors. And look, it's actually slower than normal because of that tiny little brush. But she is actually quite small. I think it's an A2, roughly an A2 sheet of canvas that I'm using. So in retrospect for the whole thing, this face is actually quite small. Smaller faces are actually harder to paint than larger faces, believe it or not. Once you start getting larger faces, and I know some people shy away from that, but they're actually easier. These little things are fiddly, and I've got to be a little bit more fiddly. It's probably why I stuck with that small brush for so long. I can't believe I stuck with it for so long. I hope I change it soon. But yeah, that's all I do now. So I'm leaving the lips. I don't want to do, normally people say work dark to light, and I'm the same. And so they'd say, well, you should put the lips in because lips are darker than everything. I don't want that. I want to get a structure of the face down so then I can capture her mood. Because with the face structure in place, I can see the shape of the jawline more clearly. I can see where my highlight on the chin, right on the ball of that chin is going to be. I can see her expression more clearly. The more paint I get down and get rid of that canvas as I'm painting around her now, the better off I am. for seeing what I want to do with her mouth, because this is all about character. So I know she's contemplating, I know she's reflecting back on her life. By the way, this is her bedroom. If someone's missed the earlier videos, the house had sold. The lamp isn't there. The curtain's not really there. I just made them up and put them in for context of the actual painting to give it a little bit, not just a bare empty room. So someone's saying, take a photograph. Well, you can't, because it doesn't exist like this. We've changed a couple of things around, and the background's changed around slightly in colouring and muting of tones to reflect going back in time. That's what it's all about. But you can now see, as I've got the chin in there, and I'll put a bit of a highlight on this chin, and it's not very bright. You did see me come off the palette there just to get it. Now, once I get that in, I can see her better, and you can see her better. I bet you're looking going, I can just about see the shape of where that mouth should be. Even though I just sketched the mouth in really roughly, just said, look, it's approximately on this line, it's approximately this shape. Because I've now got everything else in play, I can now start to look at that. Now, remember I said use darker colors than lighter colors when you first start off, and I'll just move the palette up a little bit so you can see what I'm doing with my reds here. By the way, it's alizarin crimson mixed with burnt umber and then a little bit of titanium white going in there. And you can now see I've just done 3 values, and I will play with them on this brush as we go. But what I'm doing now is I'm actually looking at it and going, what would the angle of that mouth? Does that make sense to me? Now, initially, it's pretty hard. Now, I know the bottom lip's going to have a bit of a highlight on it, so let's just pop that in. I'm probably painting more now from imagination than from painting, because I'm looking for character. I know what I want her to be thinking. I know I want her to be reflecting on her past. So now I want the shape of the mouth to just have that imagery that someone's just pursed their lips and is thinking. And you see that lighter, and I mixed it in with the darker. So you can see, even though there's only 3 values, originally you'll see I'm starting to mix values together to get these shifts going on. And then I'll go slightly darker again. Very small incremental shifts, by the way. I'm sure you can see it on the palette. You're probably thinking, wow, that's not much of a shift at all. But it really does help the viewer's eyes make sense of everything. And of course, this is a bright red because I've got the burnt umber in there as well, just killing that red off. And even if she had really, really bright red lipstick, I would probably kill the red off anyway. Otherwise, it will just, on a painting, it will just leap and you'll just be blindsided by these gorgeous red lips and you won't see anything else. So we dull them down with a bit of burnt umber. Just take the edge off that red, just so we've got it. Now I'll just finish off a bit of jawline. And what I'm going to do here, I'll just show you what it's like once I put the neckline in. How is that? What a difference it makes when you can step back and the neckline goes in and we're done.
Well, I hope you enjoyed that. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope you really enjoyed seeing those little shapes that I put on there that really bring out the character of the person and really help tell that story that you're trying to tell, because that's the whole idea behind the portrait. Hey, you haven't done it, hit that subscribe, hit that like, ask me any questions you want, put some comments down. I really do love getting them. Next time when we come back for Alicia, we're going to paint her hand. Down here, I'm going to show you some really simple tricks of making a hand look very, very realistic, and it's really easy to do. And we'll put her clothing on. And we should just be about to the end of this journey of Alicia's portrait. Again, thank you very much for joining me. It's been a real pleasure having your company, and I'll see you on the next one.